obviously, we're all concerned about the war, right? And as we should be, right? I mean, we're in unprecedented times here. So, and the one thing is for sure, if you go back and look at when the U.S. has been involved in these kinds of things, inflation rolls through the economy, whether you like it or not, because there's government contractors that are supplying things for the war. Of course, we don't know how far or how little will be involved, but this is going to be something to watch. I do think at the same time, we have this kind of undercurrent going on with AI and tech, and big companies are announcing cuts, massive cuts, across the board because they can do things more efficiently with less people. And so we just don't know where that's heading. And I actually think that before we know it, we're actually going to be up over 5% unemployment.
Yeah, and we talked about that on our live on YouTube on Monday. Now I wanted to go back to 2019 because I wanted to kind of compare what was different then than now. Because if we talk about rates going back to 4%, we have to compare of why that would be an issue when it wasn't an issue in 2019. And I think the big one in 2019 was inflation was under 2% and or was at 2%. And I think that's a big deal because all growing up, from the time I graduated college and I was squeezed, I was in my 20s until 2020, I never really cared about or monitored inflation because I never felt a lot of inflation.
Yeah, I think that's common because I
Mhm.
got to tell you, I personally, oddly enough, I'm very focused on it now, but for the longest time, I just didn't consider it, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's like
I'm not shopping for a family, groceries, right? And I'm not you back then I wasn't really using my car for for work and for all the things and I wasn't that concerned with all the rising prices like insurance and property taxes and all those kinds of things. And I wasn't really plugged into the economy that much, right?
Mhm.
Until, I think probably into your 30s and going into your 40s, right? Really, I mean, seriously, like some people do, some people start earlier than others. But the truth is, it really starts to show up, in your 30s and your 40s, right? I mean, you start to really see that when you start to have a family because everything's more. And that's when you start to that's when you start to tighten your belt. You start to look at how do we cut back on things. You start to look at alternatives that you used to do at the grocery store. You start to look at different ways of travel. You start to look at giving up your car instead of, and just Ubering because of the price of owning a car. And so those are all things that people are going through right now.
Yeah, because, back in the day when inflation was 2% or 2.2% or 1.8%, it didn't really feel super significant. I mean, things always kind of went up a little bit, but you'd have to look at it over 5 years for it to go up 10% typically. And so that's very incremental. But, starting in 2020, 2021, we were seeing like 7, 8, 9% inflation increases all in a year. So, every time all of us went to the grocery store or filled up our gas tank or went to buy a car, everything was just crazy expensive. And so we didn't have that in 2019 and we hadn't had that for a long time in 2019. So for us now, the Fed has to look at that before they just start dropping rates. Is this going to spike inflation again? Because right now inflation is kind of sort of under control. I mean, it's teetering, but it's not as bad as it was. And so but people are already scarred. I mean, it's like, okay, we already had a, 9% year over year inflation increase. So now even 2 more percent just feels like, oh my gosh, things are going up even more, but if it's 3%, I mean, that's 33% more than they allowed before. So I just think that, that is a big difference. And I think that's why you won't see anything aggressive because I think they're, especially with this war, I think they're going to be even more, um, you know, slower to pull the trigger on lowering rates.
I don't know. I think you think about what lowering rates does under this administration. It just unlocks so much money sitting there, trillions of dollars. And people traditionally aren't very good at managing their money. Like, let's just be clear on that. I mean, our personal savings rate is at an all-time low right now. and went up during COVID when everybody got their stimmy checks, and then then it went right down, and then the credit card debt went way up over $1 trillion. Now it's significantly, it just keeps moving up. So essentially, everybody's buying on credit, right? And they're getting into debt